Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 42 in our History Bites series. Today we will discuss the momentous task of the delegates at the Constitutional Convention to draft a constitution that would, as the Preamble states, form a more perfect union. The Articles of Confederation, ratified several months before the British surrender at Yorktown in 1781, provided for a loose confederation of U.S. states, which were sovereign in most of their affairs. On paper, Congress, the central authority, had the power to govern foreign affairs, conduct war, and regulate currency. But in practice, these powers were sharply limited because Congress was given no authority to enforce its requests to the states for money or troops. In fact, it gave so few powers to the central government that it was more like a treaty among the 13 independent states than a constitution for a new nation. It amounted to little more than, quote, a league of friendship in which, quote, each state retained its sovereignty, freedom, and independence. Although it gave to the central government substantial responsibilities, including the common defense, the security of their liberties, and their mutual and general welfare, it denied to the government most of the powers necessary to carry out those responsibilities, including the power to tax and to regulate commerce among the independent states. Moreover, the Articles of Confederation failed to provide for a chief executive capable of giving energy and focus to the new central government. By 1786, it was apparent that the Union would soon break up if the Articles of Confederation were not amended or replaced. 5 states met in Annapolis, Maryland to discuss the issue, and all the states were invited to send delegates to a new constitutional convention to be held in Philadelphia. On May 25, 1787, delegates representing every state except Rhode Island convened at Philadelphia's Pennsylvania State House for the Constitutional Convention. The building, which is known as Independence Hall, had earlier seen the drafting of the Declaration of Independence and the signing of the Articles of Confederation. The Assembly immediately discarded the idea of amending the Articles of Confederation and set about drawing up a new scheme of government. Revolutionary War hero George Washington, a delegate from Virginia, was elected convention president. Edmund Randolph of Virginia offered the most comprehensive plan, essentially bypassing revisions and suggesting an entirely new government. The Virginia plan had been drafted by fellow delegate James Madison. While some believed the articles should be corrected and enlarged as to accomplish the objects proposed by their institution, the Virginia plan called for completely replacing it with a strong central government based on popular consent and proportional representation. Its distinguishing features included a bicameral legislature, a separate executive, and judiciary branch with a national jurisdiction. The Virginia plan received support from states with large populations such as Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and South Carolina. A number of smaller states, however, proposed the New Jersey plan, drafted by William Patterson, which retained the essential features of the original articles: a unicameral legislature where all states had equal representation, the appointment of a plural executive, and a Supreme Court of limited jurisdiction. The convention debated these competing proposals from May to July 1787 before turning over plans to a grand committee to hash out an agreement. The committee's report, dubbed the Great Compromise, ironed out many contentious points. It resolved the delegates' sharpest disagreement by prescribing a bicameral legislature with proportional representation in the House and equal state representation in the Senate. Most of the delegates initially thought that the executive should be elected by the national legislature. Still others thought the executive should be elected by the state legislatures or even by the governors of the states. James Wilson was virtually the only delegate who proposed direct election of the president by the people. He believed that it was only through some form of popular election that the executive branch could be given both energy and independence. But realizing that his idea of popular election of the president was gaining no favor, Wilson proposed a compromise by which the president would be elected by a group of electors chosen either by the state legislatures or by the people of their individual states. The delegates didn't like that proposal any more than they liked his proposal for direct popular election, voting it down overwhelmingly at that point. They voted against some version of the proposal on numerous occasions between early June and early September of 1787, only agreeing to the version contained in our modern Constitution, modified slightly by the 12th Amendment, grudgingly and out of a sense of desperation as the least problematic of the alternatives before them. On September 12th, just 5 days before the convention was to adjourn, George Mason, the author of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, proposed that the nearly completed draft of the Constitution be prefaced with a Bill of Rights. It would, he said, give great quiet to the people. But the delegates did not embrace Mason's proposal. Indeed, when the matter was put to a vote, not a single state delegation supported Mason's proposal. Despite this, a total of 39 delegates signed the Constitution on September 17, 1787, sending it to the states for ratification. After 2 months of intense debates and revisions, the delegates produced the document we now know as the Constitution, which expanded the power of the central government while protecting the prerogatives of the states. When the final draft of the Constitution was submitted to the people of the states for their approval, the absence of a Bill of Rights quickly emerged as one of the most serious objections to the proposed plan of union. If many of the supporters of the Constitution subsequently had not promised that they would quickly work to add a Bill of Rights to the Constitution once the new government commenced operation, it is likely that the document would have failed to gain the approval of the 9 states necessary for its ratification. Fortunately, the first federal Congress of the new government of the United States fulfilled that promise, and one of its first actions added that Bill of Rights, making the more perfect union devised by the framers still more perfect. Ironically, the person who took the lead in drafting a Bill of Rights in the first Congress was James Madison, who had opposed adding a Bill of Rights not only during the convention, but also during the debate over ratification in his state of Virginia. Beginning on December 7, 1787, 5 states, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, ratified the Constitution in quick succession. However, other states, especially Massachusetts, opposed the document because it failed to reserve undelegated powers to the states and lacked constitutional protection of basic political rights such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press. In February 1788, a compromise was reached under which Massachusetts and other states would agree to ratify the document with the assurance that amendments would be immediately proposed. The Constitution was thus narrowly ratified in Massachusetts, followed by Maryland and South Carolina. On June 21, 1788, New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify the document, and it was subsequently agreed that government under the U.S. Constitution would begin on March 4, 1789. On September 25, 1789, the first Congress of the United States adopted 12 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and sent them to the states for ratification. 10 of these amendments were ratified in 1791. In November 1789, North Carolina became the 12th state to ratify the U.S. Constitution. Rhode Island, which opposed federal control of currency and was critical of compromise on the issue of slavery, resisted ratifying the Constitution until the U.S. government threatened to sever commercial relations with the state. On May 29, 1790, Rhode Island voted by 2 votes to ratify the document, and the last of the 13 original colonies joined the United States. In 1789, in the first presidential election, George Washington was unanimously elected President of the United States. With 69 electoral votes, Washington won the support of each participating elector. No other president since has come into office with a universal mandate to lead. According to Article 2 of the Constitution, each elector in the Electoral College possessed 2 votes. The candidate who received a majority of the votes was elected president. The candidate with the second most votes in the Electoral College, whether a majority or a plurality, was elected vice president. Behind Washington, John Adams, who most recently had served as the first U.S. ambassador to Great Britain, finished with 34 electoral votes and became the first vice president of the United States. The convention's oldest delegate, 81-year-old Benjamin Franklin, summed up the nearly 4 months of debate, disagreement, and occasional outburst of ill temper that had marked the proceedings during the summer of 1787. Franklin observed that whenever, quote, you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, you inevitably assemble with those men all their prejudices, their passions, their errors of opinion, their local interests, and their selfish views. From such an assembly, can a perfect production be expected? The wonder of it all, Franklin asserted, was that the delegates had managed to create a system of government, quote, approaching so near to perfection as it does, end quote. Today, the U.S. Constitution is the oldest written national constitution in operation in the world. In the 1970s, David McCall of the advertising agency McCaffrey & McCall watched his young son struggle to learn his multiplication tables, but could rattle off all the lyrics of the latest Rolling Stones hit without a second thought. McCall realized that if he could place good educational material inside of catchy music with kid-friendly animations, he would be able to help children just like his son. He pitched his idea to ABC Television, his biggest client at the time. The network bought the idea, and the 3-minute shorts were headed for air a few months later. It was called Schoolhouse Rock. Of all the Schoolhouse Rock songs Lynn Ahrens wrote or performed, the Preamble holds a special place in the hearts of 70s and 80s kids. In 3 minutes, the folksy tune with the catchy chorus provides viewers a foundational understanding of what the Constitution and especially the Preamble are exactly and why they're important.
Do you know about the USA? Do you know about the government? Can you tell me about the Constitution? Hey, learn about the USA. In 1787, I'm told our founding fathers did agree to write a list of principles for keeping people free. The USA was just starting out, a whole brand new country, and so our people spelled it out, the things that we should be. And they put those principles down on paper and called it the Constitution, and it's been helping us run our country ever since then. The first part of the Constitution is called the Preamble and tells what those founding fathers set out to do. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. In 1787, I'm told our founding fathers all sat down and wrote a list of principles that's known the world around. The USA was just starting out, a whole brand new country, and so our people spelled it out. They wanted a land of liberty, and the Preamble goes like this. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, for the United States of America.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, click like, and if you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. Happy Constitution Day, and thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.